Okay, let's talk about Polkadot. It's one of the biggest, most well-known projects in crypto, right? It was even started by one of the co-founders of Ethereum. And yet, its story is, well, it's kind of confusing for a lot of people. It promises this grand multi-chain future, but if you've been watching the charts, you know the price action and the general feeling around it have been pretty brutal lately. So we're going to dive in because there is a massive change coming in 2026 that could literally change everything.
And this right here, this is the whole puzzle in a nutshell. Look at this. On one side, you've got the current market sentiment from places like TradingView, and the technical indicators are just screaming strong sell. I mean, right now, the market is just incredibly bearish. But then you look at the other side. You've got forecasters looking out to 2026, and they see this potential explosion, with some price targets hitting $10, even $15. I mean, that is a huge disconnect.
So that brings us to the big question, right? Which one is it? Is Polkadot this deeply undervalued gem that's about to make a historic comeback? Or is it a classic value trap? Something that looks cheap, but it's cheap for a really good reason, because its best days are already gone. To figure that out, we've got to look at what all the bulls are betting on. To really solve this Polkadot puzzle, we have to understand what in the world is set to happen that has all these analysts so completely divided. And the answer? Well, it all comes down to some really fundamental upgrades that are planned for the entire network. Yeah, and we're not talking about some minor software patch here. Polkadot is getting ready for what is probably the most radical, most sweeping economic and architectural change in its entire history. Honestly, the whole bullish argument for 2026 really hangs on this single event. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's decode this 2026 upgrade. You can think of it as a two-part revolution that's happening at the same time. One part is about the tokenomics, the money, and the other is about its core technology. We're going to start with the economics. For anyone who's bullish on Polkadot, there is one date that is circled on the calendar, March 14th, 2026. The community even has a cool name for it, the Pi Day issuance cut. And really, the best way to think about it is like Polkadot's version of a Bitcoin halving. It's a pre-programmed supply shock that's designed to make the token more scarce. So on that day, the annual creation of new DOT tokens is going to be slashed by over 53%. That is a massive reduction in the new supply that's hitting the market every year, which in theory creates a whole new level of scarcity. But wait, it actually gets even bigger than that. The upgrade also introduces a permanent, unchangeable hard cap on the total supply of DOT, 2.1 billion tokens. And that's it. This is a monumental shift. Polkadot goes from being an asset that inflates forever to one with an absolute final supply, which completely changes the long-term math on its value. This upgrade also completely overhauls how the network even makes money. So the old way, the parachain auctions, it forced projects to lock up these gigantic piles of DOT tokens for 2 years straight just to rent a spot on the network. The new model, called Agile Core Time, just throws that whole idea out. It becomes this flexible, on-demand marketplace where developers can just buy the processing power they need when they need it. It makes the whole thing way more accessible, and it creates a real, direct revenue stream for the network. Now, let's talk about the technology side of this revolution. It's an upgrade called JAM, which stands for Join, Accumulate, Machine. And trust me, this is a big one. It's so significant that some people are basically calling it Polkadot 3.0. To put it simply, the goal here is to turn Polkadot into a kind of decentralized global supercomputer, a machine that can run any type of computer code, not just blockchains that were built using Polkadot's special toolkit. So why is this JAM upgrade such a big deal? Well, it's a direct shot fired in this intense competition that's happening in crypto right now. To really get it, we have to zoom out a bit and look at what people are calling the modular war. It really all comes down to two completely different ways of thinking. Polkadot, it's best described as a modular monolith. What that means is it gives developers all these flexible, modular pieces to build with, but everything sits on top of one single giant shared security layer. On the other side, you've got its main rival, Cosmos. Cosmos is all about pure modularity. It gives developers the tools, but it's up to them to put it all together and, crucially, manage their own security. And right there, that creates this fundamental trade-off. If you build on Polkadot, you get instant access to massive pooled security, and communication between chains is seamless. It's super powerful and efficient. But if you go with Cosmos, you get total control, total sovereignty, and the flexibility to build your chain exactly the way you want it. So you could say Polkadot prioritizes shared security,
while Cosmos prioritizes individual freedom.
All right, so let's bring this all the way back to where we started. Now that we understand these huge economic and tech upgrades that are coming, is Polkadot a value trap, or is the market just completely missing this massive story about the future? First things first, let's be absolutely crystal clear about what a value trap actually is. It's an asset, a stock, a coin, whatever, that looks cheap if you only look at its past performance. But here's the thing, the market isn't stupid. It has correctly sniffed out that the business is in a long-term, possibly permanent decline. That low price isn't an opportunity, it's a warning sign. So, using this chart as a guide, we can start to figure out where Polkadot fits. The bearish argument, the value trap argument, is that its competitive advantage has been worn away. But the bulls, they would point straight to these 2026 upgrades as all the evidence you need for the healthy value play column. They see management being strategic, not reactive. They see JAM and agile core time as a huge reinvestment in the future, not some desperate last-ditch effort.
And this quote from QuoneCube, I think, just perfectly summarizes the bull case. The whole argument is that the changes coming in 2026 aren't just for show. They fundamentally rewrite the entire story of the asset, turning it from just another inflationary token into a scarce, revenue-generating piece of what could be core internet technology, and that, they argue, is what stops it from being a value trap.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway for you, the investor? Well, whether you're bullish or bearish on Polkadot itself, this whole deep dive really brings to light some timeless rules for just surviving and thriving in the crypto markets. These principles, they apply to everything. First, and you hear it all the time for a reason, do your own research. Don't just trust a price forecast or a scary sell signal. You've got to have a plan for when you're getting out, whether that's taking profits or cutting your losses. You have to control your emotions, diversify your risk, and probably the most important one of all, never ever invest more than you are truly willing to lose. This space is wild, and discipline is your absolute best friend.
And that really leaves us with this final question to think about. Are these monumental upgrades that are planned for 2026 a genuine bridge to a new, much more valuable future for Polkadot? Or are they just a really complex, really expensive way to pave over the cracks of an old design? That, my friends, is the multi-billion-dollar question that the market is going to answer over these next few years.